And so imposter syndrome causes a lot of stress and anxiety. I personally first experienced imposter feelings when I first started my business 7 years ago. I spent 9 months creating the best online course I possibly could. I crossed the creation finish line, and while I should have been happy, I was paralyzed. Instead of seeing myself succeed, all I saw was my shortcomings. That ugly voice inside me reared, asking me, "Who do you think you are to teach this? You're not qualified. You're not good enough." I tell you, I was terrified of launching the course. I abandoned my course that I had spent months of blood, sweat, and tears creating, and I returned to my comfort zone. So today in the podcast, I want us to quiet that voice that says that you're not good enough and that you don't belong here.
Hi, I am Imposter, a corporate girl who also has multiple passions. When I'm not at my 9 to 5, I spend time focusing on growing my small side business that I love. I created From Stack to Unstoppable podcast to give you simple, actionable strategies to help you get unstuck from limiting beliefs and find your purpose. If you're a professional, a 9 to 5er, or an aspiring entrepreneur and are looking to get out of your comfort zone, use your God-given talents and passion, you, my friend, are in the right place. Let's get started.
Welcome to another episode of From Stack to Unstoppable podcast. I am your host, Imposter. So today, I wanted to talk about something different. This being Women's History Month, I want to talk about a phenomenon that many high-achieving women struggle with, and this is the imposter phenomenon. Now, imposter syndrome is a feeling of self-doubt that causes you to question your ability, even when you have success at work or in business, maybe in an academic setting or in life in general. You feel like you're not good enough. You have these negative conversations where you ask yourself, who are you to do this? Who do you think you are? It's a feeling of being a fraud and that you will soon be found out. Imposter syndrome can affect both men and women in any line of work or social status and in any age. The term imposter syndrome was first used by two psychologists, Dr. Pauline Rose Clance and Dr. Suzanne Innes. Dr. Clance says that she herself experienced the imposter phenomenon while in graduate school, where she would be afraid that she would not do well in important exams and only remembered all she did not know instead of what she had done well. She didn't know that other people had the same experiences until she went to teach at a prominent liberal arts school and started hearing this from her students. Then in 1978, these two psychologists were working with high-achieving women, and they began to notice that despite the fact that these women were high-achieving academically and in the workplace, they expressed that they felt like they were fakes and frauds, despite any evidence of high achievement. After seeing this dynamic repeatedly, they coined the term imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome isolates people and causes them to keep their innermost feelings secret. The fear of not fitting in or not being up to the task really causes people to feel like they are not good enough, like they have to hide and make sure not to be exposed because they feel truly that they are frauds, and that if they are exposed, they lose their job, they'll lose their livelihood. And so imposter syndrome causes a lot of stress and anxiety. I personally first experienced imposter feelings when I first started my business 7 years ago. I spent 9 months creating the best online course I possibly could. I crossed the creation finish line, and while I should have been happy, I was paralyzed. Instead of seeing myself succeed, all I saw was my shortcomings. That ugly voice inside me reared, asking me, "Who do you think you are to teach this? You're not qualified. You're not good enough." I tell you, I was terrified of launching the course. I abandoned my course that I had spent months of blood, sweat, and tears creating, and I returned to my comfort zone. So today in the podcast, I want us to quiet that voice that says that you're not good enough and that you don't belong here. If you have experienced these feelings, just know you're not alone. And secondly, this does not need to be a weight that you carry forever. Imposter syndrome is not a mental illness. The symptoms do not characterize an abnormality. Some of the symptoms that align with imposter feelings are self-doubt, feeling like a fraud, inability to accept your own skills and abilities, attributing success to external factors, fear of being found out, and other types of negative internal conversations that tell you that you don't measure up. So as I was researching for this episode, I learned that there are 5 types of imposter syndrome from a book called The Imposter Syndrome by Phil Roberts. And so we're going to go through one by one, and you can maybe see which one you identify with. And then I'm going to tell you how you're going to kick that imposter syndrome to the curb. Okay? Number 1, the perfectionist. Perfectionism and imposter syndrome work together to create negative feelings. So let me ask you, do you have trouble delegating? Do your work relationships and in life in general have to be perfect all the time? Perfectionists set high goals, and when they cannot meet them, they feel like a failure. There's nothing wrong with having high expectations. However, sometimes setting them too high can be unrealistic and can cause you to experience burnout. To avoid this type of perfectionism, accept failure or less than perfect work. If you go to the gym 4 times a week, but end up going just once that week, don't beat yourself up on it. I normally go to the gym 4 days a week, but this week I was away because my girls were on spring break. So I did not go to the gym. However, one of the activities that my family did one day was to ride bicycles around the island where we were. And that to me was my exercise for the week. But if you can't improvise, then accept B- work. I once heard Brooke Castillo, the owner of the Life Coach School, say in an Amy Porterfield's podcast that it's okay to have a B-. Tell yourself that you gave it your best and replace negative thoughts with positive ones. See perfectionism for what it is, and recognizing your specific thought patterns surrounding perfectionism can help you know your triggers. The other type of imposter syndrome is the superhero. The superhero or workaholic is always doing more to prove their worth. They feel the need to be super in their lives, in the different roles that they hold. They may hold a demanding career, they may be a parent, a husband, a wife, but within those roles, they may feel like frauds, even if they're doing all they possibly can. Now, the superhero tends to overwork to cover up for their insecurities. They have a hard time accepting their accomplishments. This is damaging to their self-esteem and the way they relate to others, and it creates a lot of anxiety. They tend to work late into the nights and weekends just so that they can feel they are doing enough, and they struggle to have downtime. They sometimes even miss out on social events and their hobbies in order to work more. And sometimes their relationships suffer because of their constant need to be working. They are addicted to the validation of working. To overcome this type of imposter syndrome, set healthy boundaries. Otherwise, you're going to burn out. Superheroes have trouble saying no to work. So know yourself well enough so you can create healthy boundaries. Take a few minutes to clear your thoughts. You can do that by listening to a guided meditation or even do a few simple breathing exercises. And there are many mindfulness apps that you can download on your phone. But the key thing here is if you identify yourself with a superhero type of imposter syndrome, know your boundaries, set boundaries. And I know that behavior change takes time, especially when we have engaged in certain behaviors for a period of time. So be kind to yourself and work on it a few minutes a day. The other thing you could do is validate yourself by saying positive words to yourself. You can say, I am proud of myself and all I have accomplished. The third imposter type is the expert. Now, the expert bases their self-worth on what they know. If there is something they do not know, they feel like they are not worthy and fear being exposed. They go for degrees and certifications just so that they feel they know everything required for their job. And I get it. There's always more for us to learn, and striving to improve your skills can definitely help you professionally and improve your chances of getting a good job. But we don't want to take this too far by seeking out too much information, because really seeking out too much information is actually a form of procrastination. So focus on what your job requires and learn the additional skills that are required as you go. Don't expect to know everything and let go of control. Control is thinking about everything in advance. Just go with the flow. Okay, the fourth type of imposter syndrome is a natural genius. Robert says that people who identify with this type of imposter feelings judge their competence based on how easily and quickly they can adapt to new things. Unlike the expert that we just talked about, the ones who go for degrees and certifications to feel like they know all they need to know, the natural genius actually love being able to know something without those additional credentials. They don't like asking for help because they are afraid of being criticized. They also feel ashamed or not good enough for not getting something the first time and avoid doing tasks that they haven't tried before. They would rather do things on their own just so they can prove that they can. If you fall into this category, to move past these feelings, see yourself as a work in progress and admit you don't know everything. Ask questions. Many natural geniuses do not like asking questions, but you're going to realize that many people appreciate people who ask questions for clarification. The last imposter syndrome that we're going to talk about is the soloist. The soloist is afraid to ask for help out of fear that it will only expose them as a fraud. They fear that if they ask for help, they're going to be seen as incompetent or stupid. They feel guilty when they ask for help and will do anything to avoid it. Guilt is a feeling you get when you've done something wrong, but there's nothing wrong with asking questions. The soloist feels validated by completing difficult tasks alone that most people could not do by themselves. Now, if your imposter feelings show up this way, know that we can always grow and learn. And the fear of looking incompetent actually makes you look more incompetent. So don't be afraid to ask for help. No matter which category you fall in, just know that you're not alone. Studies have shown that 70% of people experience imposter syndrome at some point in their lives. And actually some famous people like Michelle Obama and someone like actress Jodie Foster, they say that they have experienced imposter syndrome in their lives. Even the COO of Facebook, Sheryl Sandberg, has said that there are still days that she wakes up feeling like a fraud. So just know that validation comes from within, and we cannot control what anyone thinks about us, but we can control what we think about ourselves. And that's all that matters. We need to be confident to internalize our successes and not let that internal voice of who do you think you are let us feel like we're frauds. I hope this episode was helpful, and if you know someone who can benefit from it, please share it. I cannot wait to see you next week. Take care.
Hey, if you enjoyed today's episode, please take time to review and rate it. It's the fastest and easiest way to say thank you for creating this content. Until next time, keep thriving. I cannot wait to see you next week. Take care now.